We've got some pretty traditional transition words in these choices, so let's just dive right into the sentences and see what we can pick up. Mary Ellen Pleasant, a successful entrepreneur during the Gold Rush era, earned the moniker Mother of Human Rights in California after successfully challenging discrimination in the state. In 1866, she sued a streetcar company for denying her and other black riders service, a suit she eventually won when the California Supreme Court declared it illegal for carriers to exclude passengers based on race. This, to me, just kind of naturally, even without looking at the answer choices, feels like we are going into an example, right? They're saying she's the mother of human rights. How did she earn this moniker? Now we get a specific example of how. And so I'd be looking for an answer that means that. And if we think about the four main transition categories, we do have some words that kind of fit those categories here. And hopefully you recognize that specifically is one of those words that just fits that category of, for example. It is perfect. It is the answer. But we should talk about some of these others. For this reason is a complicated way of saying so. Then can also do that. Then can also be a word that has to do with time. So sometimes it's like first this happened, then this other thing happened. But sometimes it is more of like just a plain old like cause and effect word, and the time is less of a factor. So you may have heard in other explanations that I've done for these kinds of questions that sometimes when we have two words that fit the same category, we can eliminate both of them. This would be a case where I'd be a little bit hesitant to do that, because it could have been the case that like for this reason was wrong, but then was right, or vice versa. So not something I want to do here. The more interesting or maybe problematic answer choice is something like C. I think if you get this wrong, that's probably what you're picking. Mostly because you don't know what it specifically means, and this is why you need to watch my lesson on the four main transition categories. But in addition, is also kind of harmless. It doesn't really pose a problem to put it here. It's not like super wrong. It's just that in addition is not really a transition at all. It's a phrase that we use to kind of like just move on to the next sentence. It doesn't really connect it that in any significant way back to the previous sentence. So sometimes a phrase like in addition is correct, but it's only correct because like everything else is wrong. And we don't have that situation here, right? So if you picked it, I think it's because you didn't think of specifically as meaning the right thing. And maybe you hopefully were just like, well, that seems to fit. It seems like, yeah, you could say that. But the only reason we're ever going to pick these kind of and words, things like moreover and furthermore, is if everything else fails, because those are not really transitions. They are just kind of like these like intros to a sentence that don't really connect us to the previous sentence. So we only get them through process of elimination. And that's important to remember that these transition questions are very game-like. We end up using process of elimination on a lot of them. Here, though, I think it's just read the sentence. The connection to me is obvious. And then once we know what specifically means, it's an easy answer to pick.